Ever fancied a spot of open water rowing? Well, this could be your big moment. Don't know what open water rowing is? Don't worry, we're about to find out. Joining me now is a man who started a company that gets people to challenge themselves by taking on open water rowing races, both here in the UK and in the Mediterranean. Tom Solent, thank you very much for joining us. So just tell me first of all, what is open water rowing and how's it different from normal rowing?
Fundamentally, you're using ocean rowing boats, so it's all about sleeping on board, living on board, being totally self-sufficient on board a boat. And that could be for days, weeks, and sometimes months. I think there's been a bit of an expansion of people taking part in ocean rowing crossings in the last few years, and it's really about making that more accessible.
So the boats are fundamentally bigger, really, is what we're saying.
They're bigger, but they have cabins. Yeah, so they're bigger, they have cabins, and people row in shifts. So half the crew will be rowing and half the crew will be sleeping, and you are constantly going 24 hours a day. It's about being out on the sea and, being in open water and
what
doing
is it
self-sufficient.
People get from this? Because it sounds absolutely exhausting, if nothing else.
It's probably for a certain type of person. They tend to come from all sort of walks of life. Seeking a new type of adventure is quite a common one. You could be a marathon runner, you could be a long-distance cyclist, you could be a passionate sailor, or just a keen walker, mountain climber, something like that. They're just looking for a new challenge, and the one thing that it really gives to you is a huge sense of achievement. You're propelling a boat, there's no sail, there's no motor, and you're covering huge distances of miles, and that makes it a real rewarding challenge.
And so you run this company called Shore Seeker. Tell us what people who embark on one of your challenges will do and what will happen.
Sure. So they will come down and do some training with us. We're based out of Hayling Island here in Hampshire, and we use the Solent as our training ground, basically, and people will come and do 3 days of training with us. They will live, sleep, eat on board their boat. They'll have a training skipper with them and a support boat to sort of put them through all the motions of what happens when you're at sea on one of these boats, all the safety training that's involved. And once they've had a sort of basic level of training that first 3 days, they could then take that on to go and do, say, a weekend race. Then we run several of these all over the UK.
I mean, is that good? Like rowing all day, and do you row all night as well?
You do, 24 hours a day.
Oh my goodness!
So all our boats are identical. So there's a very big competitive element to all of this, because you've got identical equipment and you've got the same boat. So the only difference between each of the boats are the people on board, and it's about how well they work together to get from A to B. You get competitive people and you get people just there for the challenge, just the sense of adventure, the experience of being out on open water, out in the sea. And so for some, it matters more if you've come first. For a lot, it's about being out there and enjoying it. So it's not just the uber competitive, it's a lot of different people. And
you're saying it costs about £1,200 to do the training and then take part in one of these races here. That sounds like a lot of money. Explain why it's worth it.
Yeah, it is a lot of money. There's a big wrap of support around this. Your training staff, your support boats, all the equipment you're using, it's all state-of-the-art, expensive materials. A bit like sailing, it is an expensive thing to get into. But for that, you've got sort of a week's time with us that you're getting involved in. You get all your clothing, all your food, so everything that you need to take part. It is a big amount of money, but there's a huge amount to it that makes it a really big adventure you couldn't do anywhere else.
And just how did you get involved in this?
I took part in the Clipper race in 2009. I circumnavigated with the race and just took a huge amount out of it. I sailed all my life down here, grew up in Chichester, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. And having taken part in the Clipper, been through the training, sailed around the world, that sense of adventure was amazing. I took it sort of to the next level, and I did a transatlantic rowing race 3 years ago, and it was an incredible insight into the way that ocean rowing works. Now, having had a lot of experience at sea, we did quite well in the transatlantic race, and I wanted to be able to open up that market, make it more accessible to people so that they can take part in it themselves without having to go row an ocean themselves.
Well, it sounds definitely like a challenge. Tom, thank you very much for coming in and telling us all about it.
Thanks very much for having me.